Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Collidercast, episode 116. I'm Steve Cheeto.
I'm Andy Lewis.
I'm Sid Gill.
I'm Rory Summers.
I must admit, every time I say that number, I say it with incredible disbelief that we've managed to make it to, whatever number it is this week.
I'm more surprised that we can all count that high.
Well,
are we sure it's right this week?
Yeah,
we're going to have a 10-minute debate about whether it's the right number or the wrong number.
Well, it does depend whether we count Expo Part 2 as 114B or 115.
But it's out in the ether now. It's 115, so
In which case, this is definitely 116.
It's all good. There's no dispute this time.
Yeah.
Plus, Steve didn't screw it up, so we're all fine.
exactly. For once, I was 100%
First
correct.
take, done.
Which means something else will go wrong later.
Oh, of course. It's inheritable. Probably Rory's mic.
Leave off. My microphone was fine last time. It was the speaker that was on that caused the problem. It's all right.
See the big red button? Onk, onk, oink, oink. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. It's getting warm, boys. It's been bloody awful for the last couple of days. It's not really known what it's doing, and now it's suddenly gone from about 10 degrees to about 30 degrees in the space of an hour.
Definitely feels like ball soup here.
Oh, really? It's nice and cool
really?
down south here.
Really, you best wait another week.
Oh, don't you start. Is it getting hotter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we going to get like a...
That's why we're recording this week. Because I saw the weather report for next week and I thought there's no way I'm recording in that temperature.
All right.
That's fair. Yeah, I did see the weather thinking, yes, apparently it's getting hot for July.
I didn't actually anticipate us actually having a weather feature as part of the podcast from here on in.
Well, we're British. It's traditional.
It's true. And we can't talk about Dunelm forever. We've tried.
Fair enough.
All the moving's happened now. Although, to be fair, Sid does still need to get some furniture, so there might be a future trip on the cards.
We could go into sideboards if we want. We could branch out into large pieces of irrelevant furniture.
Do you know what? As a middle-aged man, I'm up for that.
Dear God.
No, let's not. Let's not do that.
Let's move swiftly on.
The sideboard hour.
I would actually say that we've had messages off Mr. Cage, because he's currently moving house, asking what's the best way of storing his board game. So I believe he's purchased the Kallax.
Yeah.
Well, that was the plan.
I store most of mine flat.
Yes, the eternal flat versus horizontal, horizontal versus vertical debate was started, although not in much detail.
Which you all body swerved quite elegantly with, well, both.
Yeah.
Seriously. Well, it depends what it is. Most of mine are stored on their side. Most of Steve and Rory's are stored on their flats.
Yeah.
But depending on what it is, I've got a bunch of them are on flat at the top above the Kallax because they don't fit in the Kallax. Or they take up too much bloody room, like 4 cubes. Looking at you, Tainted Grail. 4
cubes?
No, it's about 2, but...
It all depends on... A good insert means you can keep it on its side.
Exactly right. Now this is why I do my insert of choice, which is why Waterdeep instantly fails, because as soon as you stick on its side, you've just got a token salad.
And if you've just got cards and baggies, then that can go on its side as well. Easy.
Precisely right. Yeah. Exactly. Problem solved.
Waterdeep is worse because it only has to tip 5 degrees and everything's spilled into the next container.
That's very true, which is why I did away with that insert quite some time ago. And I am a happier man for it.
See, I just did away with the game because it was a stupid box size.
It is.
It's an
not
annoying
so good for the
box
Kallax.
size, and it has that edging on it as well because it's not even a flat surface, which is I just don't like it.
Do you know the ironic thing? Having done away with the insert so I could store it on its side, I store it flat on the top of my Kallax. It doesn't matter.
Because it's a stupid box size.
It is a stupid box size.
Board games should really come in standard sizes. There should only be maybe 4 or 5 box sizes.
Well, we could have an ISO for it.
Well, to be fair, they come in more or less a standard size because that's what the manufacturers make as standard.
And that's what,
So that's why most board games are that size.
Yep.
It's
only the weirdos that go off-piste.
Well, yeah, like the old FFG coffin boxes.
Oh, yeah, TI3. That's got a pride of place on the top, obviously.
Yeah, I think you might be able to see Horus Heresy just above my head, which fits on no shelf designed by man nor beast. Oh dear.
So we are back on furniture here.
Yeah,
As middle-aged men, it's an important thing in our lives.
It is. We'll be talking
Still,
about
still
lairs
securely in my
next.
30s, not middle age yet.
I am willing to entertain the sideboard conversation purely so I have somewhere to store my decanter and crystal glasses.
Nice.
For that reason alone,
That
I shall
is-
entertain it.
That is exactly one of the things I have done with my sideboard. There is a decanter and 6 crystal glasses on it with my whiskey selection above it. Job done.
Moving on to board game stuff then. Right.
But will there be whiskey involved, Rory? Because if there's no whiskey involved, I'm distracted
we
now.
can do drinking and board games. I'm completely okay with that.
Well, that's mandatory, isn't it? Board games require booze.
Oh yeah, I had a board game night the other day and I was driving, so disappointed. But when we ticked over to like the 3rd hour of board gaming to then crack out the next game, I was like, I can probably have another now. I was like, and I've eaten, so it's all right. Not that I condone drink driving at all, but it was
Responsible Rory, they call him.
responsible two-siders Rory. But more board game cafes. What's this about?
Well, I quite literally stumbled across a board game cafe this week.
You did.
I did. I was in Telford for work.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is part of the story. To be fair, I parked up and I went to somewhere to find some lunch, and it was the only other cafes I could find nearby were basically the kind which were full of old people and those like weird Pyrex clear mugs, you know.
Oh,
Your granny had.
Yeah, exactly them, you know, and tomato and brown sauce come in a tomato-shaped squirty bottle, you know, even the brown sauce, yeah. So I carried on walking thinking, I'm running out of options here. I don't fancy that. If I can find something like a Greg's or equivalent, that'll just do. That'll sate me and I'll be off. And I stumbled around the court, I was almost running out of patience and about to turn back, and I just saw some dice on a window and thought, please. And then it was the Boardroom Gaming Cafe in Telford. And then I had the next fear, which was, is this going to be one of those gaming cafes where I've got to pay for table time just to have my lunch? And thankfully, I didn't need to. I could just grab some lunch, ogle the board games, and make some Obi-Wan quips with the bloke behind the counter, and I was on my merry way, filled up and ready to go.
Was that the one referring to Telford as a hideous hive of scum and villainy?
Do the locals scare easily?
Yes, I think they did scare easily, to be fair.
They do
Come back in greater numbers.
They do. Ah, yes, Telford, the Milton Keynes of Staffordshire.
Are we just going to slowly work our way around the country, slagging local areas off now? Is that what we are saying?
Yeah, I think so. I think, well, this is wee business. Let's face it. It's just going to be Andy that's doing it.
Anyway, Boardroom Game Cafe, a nice little selection, not for the hardcore gamer, I would say. There wasn't many, what I would call heavy or hardcore games there. Lots of family games, and it seemed that's what they were set up for. And they did actually say they were primarily a cafe with board gaming kind of like as the side. So it was, they made sure their food and drink offerings were front and centre, which was really good. It was a really good little menu. And I had a fantastic little sandwich for my lunch. With a shopping trolley full of tortilla chips, so I was rather happy with that.
Very nice.
But yeah, nice. It's nice setup. Nice sized tables.
That's what you want.
Yeah, and they had plenty of rooms. So and apparently they were sorting out their upstairs room because some chap came in and wanted to like run some D&D games, and apparently they were decorating their upstairs room for some evening RPG sessions as well.
Like
so.
That's a nice touch. So you can have that bit of space when you're doing your silly voices.
Yeah, so all in all, good little setup, I thought.
Nice.
Excellent.
Good find.
Telford's not that far from here.
It's not. I looked at it. It's about an hour and a half for me.
No, to be fair, Andy, when I was planning my route to this job for work, I did say I can go past Andy's or I can go via the motorway. And I just
You chose the motorway. I
chose the motorway, yeah.
I feel slighted, sir. You've chose the M5 over me. That's low, man. That is low.
To be fair, it's more that I had to get back, and I knew what would happen if I stopped on yours. It wouldn't be 5 minutes, would it?
No, that's true. That's true, yes. There would have been gaming involved.
Yes. Accidental gaming. I would just fallen into a game, and that would have been it.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, how did you get here? Never mind.
I just slipped and the box lid fell off and all the components landed on the table.
He says to the doctor.
Oh dear, I just seem to happen to have Star Wars set out, ready to play.
Oh no, what a shame. We're just going to spend the next 4 hours playing it. We have to find out what happens to the rebellion.
I also popped into a miniature gaming shop while I was there, just to grab some odds and sods of paints and brushes. And it was a fantastic little shop because I've never seen such a more densely packed gaming shop in my life.
Ooh. They're always the best ones.
Yeah, primarily miniature painting stuff, but like a really good selection of paints from several different manufacturers, brushes, utensils, and obviously the chat was concentrating on kind of World War II stuff because you had just loads of World War II stuff, but it was one of those things that everything was stacked like behind each other. So every time you take something off the shelf, going, "Oh, that's a nice little paint set. Hang on, there's a different paint set behind it. Oh, hang on, there's more stuff back there."
Now, is this a result of a lack of space, or is this more likely a really shit method of stock control? Stock rotation.
I think a little from column A, and a little from column B.
So I don't know if Sid has this, but whenever I go grocery shopping and take the kids, I'm invariably going to get dragged down the toy aisle. And what Logan does is, more so Logan than my Marley, he'll take one toy off the shelf and they've got a selection of cars or Pokemon or whatever it is, but he hasn't got big enough hands to hold them, so he'll just start lining them up on the shop and on the floor in the supermarket, just start lining them all up and then working his way up and down the row, just taking everything off the shelves to put it on the floor so we can look at it all in one go.
I do hope you put them all back.
Oh, of course I do. Of course I do.
Oh, absolutely. In the right place.
Then you have that thing, it's like, he said, "Dad, can I have this?" And I'm like, "I don't really want to buy it today. You haven't got enough pocket money." So then we have to hide it somewhere else in the shop so we know where to find it next week.
What, behind the 5th bog roll or the left or something?
Why is there a bottle of ketchup behind the bog roll?
Why would my son want a bottle of ketchup with his pocket money, Andy? You clearly don't have children.
No, you're right. I do not. Thank God for that. Although today, actually, during a meeting at work, I'd have quite happily, I'd say sacrificed, but swapped my the cat for a child because live on camera in the middle of a meeting with one of my senior directors, Kipling threw up all over the window ledge. Right behind
you.
Thanks, Kipling. Brilliant.
You're in for a shock if you don't think kids do that as well. But
I'm sure they probably do, but kids probably don't try to... Well, actually, they probably do try to climb the window ledges. I don't know, Rory.
should we do some news? The PHC painting contest is going quite well.
Well,
Yours
might be.
It started.
Well, it started. I noticed the cat was chewing the shaman's staff this afternoon. I was like, what is the cat doing? Because I've got them all up on my drawers, and the cat was just on top of the drawers chewing something. I was like, what's it bloody doing? Go over, and it's just gnawing on the shaman's staff. So I've got some genuine battle damage now to him.
Nice.
So I was this close to the dog doing that to mine as well, because it was on my desk and he suddenly seems to have got a growth spurt. So his paws are on the top of the desk and his nose is on the desk. I'm not kidding, his nose was millimetres away and he had his head sideways doing that, like he's going to try and grab it off. I was like, oh, don't you dare, you little sod.
But it's fully underway. We were having a bit of discussion. I don't know whether we should tell each other what colour schemes we're doing. I noticed you guys were chatting about what colours you're doing. I quite want it to be a surprise. But I mean,
Okay,
that's fair.
Yeah, let me surprise you. Yeah,
that's
but
cool.
you, by all means, tell me what you're doing. But
so far, mine is black because I've undercoated it.
yes,
And I decided to use the new, second-hand airbrush. I brought a second-hand airbrush mainly for Oathsworn into the Deepwood because I really want to paint that. It's got lots of big miniatures. So I got this airbrush. And although I had used it a couple of times before, I obviously was lulled into a false sense of security and thought I knew what I was doing. I did not, as I managed to clog it 3 times during one undercoating session.
At least it was just the primer and not something important.
Yeah. So I worked out what I was doing wrong, thankfully. Basically, I think, well, number one, I didn't put any flow improver in, so that's one problem. Number 2, when you assemble my airbrush, the back screws in, and I hadn't screwed it in far enough. So basically, the spring tension wasn't enough to bring the button all the way back. So when I released it, it was still dropping paint into the chamber.
Oh,
so of
God.
course, as soon as I sprayed it, it just dried instantly on the needle and. Right, okay.
Dear. We've all been there.
Yeah. Lessons were learned.
Yeah. I've got used to one of the foibles of mine is if the nozzle comes off completely, obviously for cleaning, and it's made of like 3 different bits, but they also fit together, so it comes off essentially convenient. But anyway, if I don't do it up like ridiculously tight, just that extra kind of right at the end, I get back blow through the cup. It's not the end of the world because it doesn't sort of ruin the airbrush or anything. And to be fair, it does give you the advantage of mixing the paint properly in the cup. But not when you're holding it against the model, you're expecting paint to come out the front end and it splatters all over your face. Not the best.
It's really annoying watching these videos of people use them and they're all like doing these like really intricate things with it, and I'm doing it.
Yeah. How the hell do you do that? That's not fair. I've done exactly what you did.
Nah, I'm staying away from airbrushes. Quite happy with my paintbrush.
I think it's a wise idea, personally.
In other news, then, Backer Kit have launched their own crowdfunding platform. Oh, it's called Crowdfunding by Backer Kit.
We're up all night thinking about that, weren't they?
Yeah,
Jesus.
the focus group was quite small.
Probably drunk.
It's a complete alternative to Kickstarter, so it kind of deals with various projects across the spectrum, so it's not like GameFound, which is only for board games. But interestingly enough, they've got some fairly big board game publishers already lined up for its launch in Q1 of next year, including Leader Games, Restoration Games, and Silafair, who'll be launching Miniatures of Gloomhaven. All the miniatures for playing Gloomhaven and all the associated kind of spin-off games. It's going to be on there, and a lot of people have said it's because of Kickstarter's kind of links to blockchain is the reason they don't want to get involved with that anymore. So they're leaving, and obviously taking huge advantage of Backer Kit's kind of market establishment, because obviously they're kind of the go-to people for your kind of fulfillment stuff anyway. So they've got all of that in place, and now they're going to have a crowdfunding platform.
Yeah.
It's going to be nice to have a bit more competition, I think, there.
Well, the weird thing is there's always been quite a bit of competition, but the other things have never quite managed to get the traction. I remember like speaking to Game On at UK Games Expo bloody 4 or 5 years ago now. What was the other one as well that people used to use a lot?
I can't remember.
Oh, God, I can't remember. It was really big, and a lot of people used to use it, especially media people, because they took the money regardless. You had to kickstart a goal, whereas Kickstarter, if you don't meet your goal, you don't get paid. That system was you got paid anyway, and the name has completely escaped me.
Indiegogo.
That's it. That's the one.
Yes.
But the weird thing is, I've not heard anyone talk about either Indiegogo or Game On for years now.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Didn't a lot of was it Board and Dice? Was it Board and Dice who used to use Indiegogo? Because there was it Polish publishers couldn't use Kickstarter for some reason, if I remember, a few years ago.
Kickstarter took quite a while just opening it up to different countries. You don't remember that it took a while to open up to the UK, partly because it was illegal in the UK up
for
to
a long
point.
time. Yeah.
So they so Indiegogo was very popular in continental Europe because of it being available for them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But no, you're right. I haven't heard from him in ages, actually. So.
No.
Next story. Critical Role have launched their own record label for some reason.
What?
Critical Role have launched their own record label.
Give me my reaction, Steve.
Yeah. Scowler Short Halt Music. Is the name of the
Medieval
record.
pub tracks.
More or less. Basically, there's only one album out at the moment. It is Welcome to Tel Doré, which is available to stream on Spotify and whatever other services you want to use. And it's got a bunch of tracks inspired by their first campaign. And the rest of the record label is just going to be essentially good for background music when you're playing an RPG in a fantasy setting. So it's quite nice.
Could be good.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's not going to be like Games Workshop's record label.
Didn't even know they had a record label.
Was that just industrial metal?
No, it was like all poodle rock from the late 90s.
Oh, good grief.
And so there was like this is a really weird link, and I hope I've got the story right because it's an awesome if it's true. Apparently, Brian May's son was really into Games Workshop, and he went to I think he even went to like the head office in Nottingham to take his son there, and they all sort of stuff, and they got chatting, and they got Brian May to play on one of the tracks.
Oh, wow.
Really?
And not only that, but that Brian May noodly guitar was used on the soundtrack of the first Space Hulk video game. If anyone remembers that.
I do. I've got that somewhere on CD.
So yeah, they released like 3 or 4 albums, I think, and they were all like proper like 90s hair rock kind of thing. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I remember you used to go to Games Workshop, they just playing them continuously on a loop.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the music selection at Games Workshop in my time there. Next story is Origin, the Origins Game Fair. The figures are in from that one, and it's just shy of 12,000 people over the weekend of 8th to the 12th of June, which was 57% down on their pre-pandemic figures. So a huge slump for Origins. Yeah.
Now, how does that compare to UK Games Expo figures?
That is less than half. The UK Games Expo was 34,000, 35, something like that.
Blimey, because usually what happens is like Expo release these massive figures that basically show themselves to be like the 3rd biggest gaming convention in the world, and then Origins is the following weekend, and they usually pip them by 1,000 or 2,000. So the 2 of them grow at the same rate. So Games Expo is like the 3rd biggest convention for like a week. Yeah. And then it's back down to 4th.
No. In actually, the UK Games Expo had more people turn up on either the Friday or the Saturday than the entire Origins Game Fair.
Wow.
Blimey.
Yeah.
So what went wrong there then?
I don't know. I don't know whether there's still a big COVID scare. People are just not too comfortable getting back in large groups.
Is it a US one, Origins?
US, yeah. So UK Games Expo remains 3rd biggest board game convention, hobby convention.
Okay.
In the world at the moment, which is nice for us. In the world.
Well, that's interesting. If there's any American listeners who can actually point us in the direction and tell us why they think people weren't going to Origins, I'd love to hear it, because, I mean, I always thought it was a big deal. You know, it's one of the big conventions.
Yeah. Because you got what? Gen Con, Essen, arguably now UK Games Expo, Origins.
Yeah. Yeah, then you start getting into some of the more miniature, like Adepticon starts getting in there, then PAX and, Dice Tower. But yeah, those are usually the top 4.
Yeah, but it's all shifted around a bit. And then last story is an RPG-related one. I don't know if any of you guys have tried Alice is Missing, the text-based RPG. As in, literally, you send text messages to play the RPG.
Our friend Dan, I think, has played it. Part of our RPG group. I think she's played it, and I think she's.
It sounds very interesting. Like, a whole game takes about 90 minutes to play, and you can play it remotely. You just need some cards and your phone with you, and then have a group chat. But that RPG has been optioned by Paramount Movies to be turned into a movie.
That's going to be really dull with a black screen and a bunch of text on it.
I don't think that's how they're going to do it, Andy.
Okay. A bit like watching someone play Zork.
The game itself is quite... it could make a very good film. It's quite a captivating story.
Yeah, it's from what I understand of it, it's a mystery, basically. The idea is that Alice has gone missing, and you all play friends of hers, and you start the game depending on which version of Alice you're going to play against or for, and you have different pieces of information, and more information gets revealed to you as you draw these cards, and it's about trying to figure out what happened to her and why she's gone. So it could be a really nice kind of tense mystery story, but it's only just happened. It's only been optioned, so there's no one attached to it at the moment other than producers and a writer whose names I can't remember, and that was it. But yeah, it's another movie based on an RPG, which I thought was quite interesting. And it's Paramount. It's not a small production company either.
Yeah, but and I think Dungeons and Dragons was done by a big studio, and look what happened with that.
But there is a new one. I'm just saying,
There is a new one.
it's interesting to see that like our hobby is slowly starting to be represented on the big screen. And I think how Dungeons and Dragons does is going to potentially impact what's going to happen over the next maybe 10 years.
Because I mean
and how that goes.
that's the big name that everyone's heard of, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah,
It is
someone should do an Alien one. That's a really good RPG. Someone should make an Alien film.
You say that hasn't there been an announcement this week that Disney Plus are going to do one?
What?
They're doing
Really?
do an Alien series.
On Disney? Oh,
No,
Well, they own the rights, mate. Of course, it's going to be on Disney.
yeah, but it'll be shite and family friendly, which you
it
can't
won't.
do.
I don't know. I mean, calm down, mate. It's not going to be. It's not, they're putting out some good stuff on Disney at the moment. It's not all Bambi and My Little Pony or whatever the other shite they watch is.
Like when Moon Knight came out, I got really frustrated that I thought it just wasn't out in the UK at the moment. I was really excited to see that, and then realised I had the wrong parental settings on my profile. You know, that show. I mean, it gets a little bit scary at points.
Yeah.
You know, there's some kind of scary scenes in there. But yeah, no, Aliens. If they're going to go that way, if they want that broad spectrum audience, there's some scary stuff on there. Why not? But that's all my news. I don't know if you guys have got anything, but that's they're the big bits for me.
No.
It's too hard to follow that, mate.
Fair
You've
enough.
done homework and everything.
I've started writing the News Collider again. Sorry, everybody that's on the mailing list, but I've been reading board game news. So. This is what the UK Games Expo did. It made me interested in board games again.
It's good for that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I have been playing Isle of Trains, which Alora demoed at UK Games Expo. One we were there. Now I was supposed to play it, but I was probably distracted by Games Workshop or something else.
I think we were playing that game with the really pretty cards.
Oh yes, we were. We were doing
Old King's Crown.
Old King's Crown.
Yeah.
That's a better excuse. Thank you very much. Excellent. Yes, that makes it. No, that's legit rather than me just getting distracted by pretty things. Excellent. Anyway, Isle of Trains. Yes. So Alora was playing that. And said, yes, you should play this, you should play this. It's actually quite straightforward. And we managed to get a copy of the game, pre-production copy. So it's not all singing and dancing, but we've got the gist. And Isle of Trains is essentially it's a kind of engine builder-ish.
Okay.
Where if you've played Game of Trains, where you have a train with 7 carriages on it and a locomotive at the front, it's
game.
similar in format. Yeah, it is. Game of Trains is brilliant. I'm going to get these two mixed up now. But you've got an engine at the front and a bunch of carriages at the back. Now, the idea is in Isle of Trains that there's an island which comprises of 6, potentially 7 cards, depending on the player count, between 2 and 4. I think it's 4. And each card represents part of this island. So they all go together to make a little map. And there's little sort of train routes on there. Although the train routes don't actually mean a huge amount. But there's a location on each card. And the idea is that each location has a demand. So it could be oil, it could be coal, or it could be boxes, so goods. And the idea is that you've got a hand of cards, and each card on it can represent either a carriage or a part back of the train, or or a locomotive. And you can either add a card to your train, provided you don't go over its weight limit, because each locomotive can only pull a certain amount of weight, or you can use that card to kind of tuck it under an existing card, an existing carriage on either your own train or one of your opponent's trains.
Why would you put it under one of your opponent's trains?
Because you get a special action, so you'll get a reward for it. So like you'll be able to draw like 3 cards, or you'll get to be able to build something for free or something like that. So whilst it benefits your opponent by giving them a resource, it will give you, a lot more cards or the ability to do something as well.
Okay.
If you do it to yourself, you obviously don't get the benefit. You just get the tucked card. And ultimately, you use these resources on your train to deliver to one of the locations on the island. And then once you've got that location, you pick the location up, and you can deliver again to the same location later in the game with like more stuff. You'll get more points. You took it away. And points and prizes at the end of the game. The game's dependent on the number of players, but it's usually sort of once one of these cards has been picked, picked up, the timer will tick on. There's also a bunch of other locations around that you can have passengers. So what you can do is you can deploy a passenger to either your own train or another train, and you get the kind of same thing. So carriages can either accept goods or people, and you get the same thing. But if somebody has a passenger, if you've got a passenger on your train, you can deploy that to like one of the special tokens around the edge of the game, which again will give you, a special benefit. But each there's 6 colours of passenger, and each passenger can only go to a specific location that matches that colour.
Can I ask a quick question here, Andy?
Of course.
So with that, does this, if I put a passenger on your train, does that open up opportunities for me to do a dick move? To give you passengers that you don't want, or then take up space in a carriage where then you can't then put goods in that carriage?
No, because carriages can't take both. They'll either take passengers or they'll take goods. They won't.
That's
take
what
both.
I mean. But if I keep dumping passengers on your train, I get a pickup, and then you can't use that carriage to put goods in it.
No, you won't be able to put goods in it. The carriages cannot ever have both.
Oh, right, okay.
It's only either passengers or goods. So that you've got carriages for passengers, or you've got hoppers
Freight
or
things,
transit and stuff like that. So no, you can't dick someone over in this. The only way you can really dick them over is deliver to somewhere that they're working towards. But it's quite hard to work out exactly where people are going to go. But that's basically it. And then the game ends. Points win prizes. You get points for the carriages on your train, the things that you delivered, and a couple of other bits and bobs. And the person who ends the game gets a point as well because they take the little token. And that's about it. So it's a kind of an engine builder. Because you're building, you can upgrade each carriage. Once you've got a carriage down, you can only upgrade the specific type. So carriages get better, steam trains get better, etc., etc. And the game definitely benefits from more players because you've got more interaction and more options about where you put a card and get which resources you want or which abilities you want. With 2, I think it's a bit limited. But even with 2 players, I found that the game took a long time. And we played it, and it took slightly over an hour for the 2 of us to play. Not because it's particularly difficult, and not particularly because it's particularly heavy, but there's a lot of AP in it. And it just seemed slow. Because you've got to work out, you've got to hand the cards, you draw 5 cards, you've got to work out what each of them does, where you want to go with them, which ones are expendable, because there are duplicates in the deck. Could I do that? Could I do that? There's a lot of AP, and there's a lot of it just felt like there's a lot of downtime. Now, I realise it was, we're early on, we've only played it a couple of times, but it's not a difficult game. And Steve, sometimes we're playing Star Wars Rebellion, and that game can last 4 hours, and you just don't notice.
Yeah.
This is the opposite.
Okay.
This just feels like it's just like wading through treacle.
Because Alora when Alora played this at the demo, she seemed really taken with it. She thought it was really quite clever. This tucking of cards and that player interaction.
It is, but I think again, I'm getting a bit of game déjà vu with it. Because ultimately, it's not that difficult. The mechanics by which you get the resources are clever. You choose to, or you can choose to give your card to somebody else and give them a resource, or they can give it to you. But of course, you are at the mercy of your opponents. Then you don't have to. You can just as easily tuck the resources in your own train. Yeah. You just don't get the bonus. So if people don't do that, you're not going to get any of these. You're not going to get passengers on your train. It'll just be a very solo affair. And of course, the more players there are, the more options there are. So it would definitely benefit with more players. But with more players, there's more downtime, so the game would last even longer, and I would just go to sleep.
Okay.
It's not a bad game. I just think it's just a bit slower than it needs to be. I think it's not awful, but it's also actually, I just should point out, it's actually a remake of an existing game. They're just kind of upping the artwork and making it a bit more modern. This game already exists. Apparently, the artwork was all very cartoony in the past, so they've changed all the artwork. Apparently, I haven't played the original.
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures actually, the original on Board Game Geek, and it's almost either the engine style, the original. Anyone can remember that? It's much simpler. Much more pastel in its shading. Yes, this new one looks much prettier, much brighter.
Oh, it is. It's very beautiful, and I say it works. It's one of those games that I feel like I'm very much at the mercy of the deck, because I pretty much am. Because when you buy things, you build them. You use the cards in your hand to pay for them. So something will have a value. This costs you six to build. So that means you've got to discard 6 cards from your hand to build this thing. So that discarding them is fine. But if you actually want to build a little engine, no pun intended, then you've got to kind of maintain, you obviously manage your hand, but of course if you're just picking up dross, and it's not that easy to get cards in the game, unless you go for one of these special bonuses on your opponent's trains, which obviously is the objective, the point of it. You don't get that many cards, and especially when some of the more serious engines can cost like 9 cards to build, it can get expensive. Now, if you've already got something in place, you only pay the difference, like in Great Western Trail, where you're building a building and you're only paying the difference between an existing building and one you're overbuilding, for example. Yeah. So it's that sort of idea. So it can get cheaper, but it takes you a bit longer to do it. But I don't know, it just felt stodgy. Even for a small, light, hour-long game, it felt stodgy. And I just... It didn't irritate me as much. I just felt it was kind of a bit of I could have played something better in that hour.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So that's coming to Kickstarter?
Coming to Kickstarter probably shortly after this episode is released.
Right then. No pressure, Steve. No pressure.
I think you've got at least a week to 10
5
days.
hours.
a week to 10 days to do this. Yeah. Should we talk about another game that's coming to Kickstarter very soon? Andy and I played. We played Moon, the Sinister Fish game from Hack and Gardner. We did. Ooh. And I played... Sorry, Sid?
I was going to say, I saw this at Expo.
Yes.
I was intrigued by it. I didn't get to play it, so I shall listen intently.
I played this a few times now. I've played it at 5 players. 5 players twice, and with Andy and Laura once, so I've a good range of it. There are immediate similarities that people are going to draw between this game and Seven Wonders.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It is a drafting game. You get a hand of cards, you play one of them, you pass your cards on to the next person, and the game is played over 3 ages. You've got ages 1, 2, and 3, and they get progressively more advanced. That is where the similarities end. But because Seven Wonders is such a big game, such a well-known game, such a well-lauded game, those are going to be the immediate comparisons. Where Moon differs massively is that Moon is actually really, really good. Much better than Seven Wonders. It's far more interesting.
Whoa, sweet child of mine.
Right, stuff off. Right, Seven Wonders is limited. You really can only play Seven Wonders at like 5, 6, or 7 players. Anything less than that game is utter dross. Right, Seven Wonders.
And
right,
for the love
you
of
can
God,
play
don't
that
play
game.
with 7. Jesus, don't play with 7.
But it's meant to be played with 7. And then Seven Wonders, once you've been playing the game for an hour and a half, you've then got to go, right, let's go and have a drink while whoever's running it tots up the flipping scores.
Oh, you think that's bad? You want to play Palace of Mad King Ludwig?
Well, not anymore, I don't, Andy.
No, you don't. It's a good game, but adding up the scores, my God, that's an ordeal. You need a spreadsheet for that, and I'm not joking. Anyway, sorry, Moon.
No, Moon. So Moon, you've got a tiny little base. You've got 2 little moon rovers, and all the bases are slightly different. They're going to get you a resource. So you generate all your resources. You get your hand of cards. You build a card, providing you meet the requirements. Either you've got the resources or you've got the particular flags. And that's the other thing here. You've got like parts of your building that you're going to, parts of your moon base that you're going to build that are going to give you resources. Then you have these what they call flag cards. So those are like special buildings which are going to give you flags. Flags are worth victory points at the end of every age. Whoever has the majority of the flags is going to get, and I think there are 5 of them, top of my head. If you've got the most transportation flags, you're going to win the transportation victory points. A really great thing about this, having played it a few times now with a few people, a way you can accumulate victory points, there are so many different avenues to get a good chunk of victory points in this game. There are so many paths to victory, and having seen someone you did something really well there, I'm going to use that next time I play it, and it goes Pete Tong for me completely. You can You've got pink cards, which allow you these special abilities to keep reusing cards and doing grey cards, which give you a shitload of points, which are really good. And you get those early on, and then you can build those up, which kind of tailor your moon base. It's also, unlike Seven Wonders, you can play this 2-player, you can play it solo, 2-player, 3-player, and I think the game works well at 3 players. It works really well at 5 players. It does have the downside if you're playing with anybody that does have a little bit of AP, because obviously you don't have any real choices. You don't know what you're potentially going to do in that next turn until that hand of cards comes to you. And I think that's a downfall of drafting games generally. I've got an idea of what type of thing I'd like to do to how I'm going to style my moon base, but I don't know what cards I'm going to get, and then I've just got to make the best decision out of what I've got. And that can send you off in a tangent that you didn't really plan to do or hope to do. And if you're playing with people that have a lot of that suffer from AP, as I've played a few games like this, they go through each card and they try to go, this is in my good pile, this is in my maybe pile, this is in my maybe plus pile, this is in my no pile, and then it really slows it down there. But I've really enjoyed this game, and I'm really glad I've got my hands on a copy early. And the people I've played it with as well have all really enjoyed it. But Andy, do you want to throw your hat into this ring?
I would like to throw my hat in this ring. Did you mention the Rovers?
Well, the Rovers are nice. I mentioned them. That was about as far as I got, though.
Okay, because you can send little rovers over to your opponent's base. So it's another one of these you can take advantage of opponent's abilities. So if I want to take advantage of Rory's moon spa, for example, I could send a little rover over and have a nice relaxing bath, which would get me the ability of whatever the building
It would either give you the resources, or it would give you access to that flag, which is a kind of a requirement for a building that you want to use.
So it's an immediate effect. It doesn't count towards my long-term points gathering, but it does mean at the next round, at the next stage, when all of the things are sort of reset, Rory would have that rover for next time. So you've got to be careful. Players need to make sure that everyone doesn't give one person all of the rovers, because it's a thing in the next stage.
In the next stage, you're going to start with no rovers, which doesn't give you access to anybody else's stuff. You've also given them all to another player, and rovers break tiebreakers if there's ever a tiebreak for the flags. And there's also the objective cards.
Oh, yes. So
yeah, you've got bronze, silver, and gold objectives, and the first person to claims that card, and they either give you a one-off ability or an ongoing ability, and some of those were astounding. And in the prototype copy I've got, there's enough of these cards that for the 4 games I've played, I've had a really good mix. There's been a really good variety, which kind of styles your gameplay quite significantly. Really good mix. It introduces, like I say, and they're all worth victory points as well. So this is you can go for your objectives, you can go for the flags to just dominate there. You can go for your grey cards and your pink cards and dominate there. Lots of avenues to play. You're not going to be able to cover all of the bases, so you've got to kind of double down on a couple of them and try and watch out for what you. And it's drafting game. I know what I'm giving you next, Andy, and I don't want you to have this card, and I may have to make that decision. Do I scrap it off? Do I build it? Does it really work if I build it? It's got a lot of nice player interaction in it, whereas that Seven Wonders doesn't really have. With Seven Wonders, don't you only go to war with people on your left and right, and you can only trade with people left?
Yeah, on your left and right. Yeah,
left and right. But this is you can actually you're looking at everybody, 4 of the players potentially, and you're trying to work out what they're doing, what they've got, and that you want it and you don't want to give them these cards.
Fair. You can definitely tell it's by the same guy who did not Architects, Jesus.
Villagers and Streets, yeah.
I haven't played Streets, but I know Steve has, obviously. And it felt like playing, weirdly, a more complicated version of Villagers, and yet a much simpler version of Villagers at the same time.
Yeah.
Because you're only building, instead of in Villages where you have multiple columns of different types of building where each one gets steadily better the more stuff you put on. This only has literally 2 branches. You've got pink buildings or blue buildings, whatever it is, and yellow buildings, and that's it. There's no more. You just keep basically adding to that pile. So in that regard, it's simpler. And of course, the rover bit is essentially like putting in coins on in Villages. So it's essentially the same idea, just with a different shaped token. I'm not a massive fan of drafting games, I'm not going to lie. I don't hate them, but I don't love them. I think because, again, I'm at the mercy of a big pile of random. Now, I don't mind being put in a position where I've got to make the best of a bad situation. That's fine. But I think basing an entire game of it just bores me very, very quickly because I just go, that one, bang, and off we go. And I find myself waiting for everybody else. That's probably my own failing. But again, as you said, if you've got a lot of
I
AP...
think that is a thing with drafting. Like when we played, Andy, Alora, and myself, we've all played drafting games before. We've played a lot of board games before. So we played that game in probably 45 minutes, an hour, as a 3-player game.
Quite quickly.
When I played it as a 5-player game, it's including the teach both times, the 5-player game took over 2 hours to play.
Jesus, no,
Because-
I'd have been throwing things at people.
Yeah,
at that point.
it was because certain players either not familiar with drafting games, they just don't make these quick decisions. They need to kind of evaluate every card before they pass it on. But that is a problem that's inherent to that mechanic, not the game.
No, that's fair. That's fair. But I think because of that mechanic, it's something that I'm probably not going to bother backing.
But
I
we
own
did
Villagers.
Say, But when we did say that it feels a lot like Villagers, and it has those similarities to Seven Wonders, but I would say this is a better gaming experience than Villagers. If I had to choose between the two, I would rather play Moon than to play Villagers.
Them's fighting words.
They are fighting words, but I found
I
really like Villagers, but I think I like Moon Ball.
Okay, interesting.
think Villagers is better, personally. I think Moon is slightly simpler and, again, more complicated in a way, but I think Villagers is slightly better. I found Moon a bit bland and a bit brainless, frankly. I mean, again, it's probably part of the drafting mechanic. Because it's like, well, I just need that. Who's got that? Right, you can have that. That little rover. There you go. I can do what I need to do now. Next player. Right, let's move.
Yeah.
To me, it was another game that kind of dragged. And I didn't find the theme came through at all. It was just, it could have been about service stations on the M6, for all it matters. Honestly, the theme to me did not exist, apart from the shape of the little rovers. But
Yeah, I can see what you mean there, yeah.
I got very little from Moon, I'm not going to lie. I didn't hate it. It wasn't an unpleasant experience. But to me, I
remember
found it
Laura
a bit...
utterly trounced us both, didn't she, as well?
I thought you won. You win. I can go back. You can go back with the score sheet, but I think you won. But it was pretty close. I mean, nobody got thrashed. I think there's a few points between me and Alora, and then you were sort of like 10 points ahead. But I mean, we'd all got like about 100, so it wasn't a stuffing. But I don't know. It just to me felt a bit meh.
I think you're right.
Well, I'm going to be back in this. I think you what you've said has actually convinced me enough that because Village is such a big hit in our house, that I'll be back in this and waiting for it eagerly, I think.
Yeah. I don't think you'll be disappointed. If you like Villagers, you will like Moon. It's similar enough, but different enough to offer you a new challenge and a new experience.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Definitely, yes. But then again, I don't play Villagers that much either, so take that for what it's worth.
But yeah, and if you let's say if you do not like drafting games, because I think that is a style of game that people if you don't like it, then you're not going to like Moon because it's a draft.
Yeah. That's fair enough.
Weirdly, I like
So
Inish, which is a drafting game.
So when's that hitting Kickstarter?
Probably shortly after you do this episode.
Imminently.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like the 11th, 12th, something like that. It's like mid-July.
Right, mid-July.
Mid-July.
Right, excellent.
Ish, yeah.
Ish.
Just come on, more braces. Between now and the end of July.
Yeah.
I have just been informed by the media of text message, because she doesn't want to interrupt and walk into the studio. Apparently, Alora did win Moon. You're right. There you go. For the record.
Can you just tell Alora that we all knew that? And it was only you.
No.
It was only you that said it.
Everyone knows. I genuinely thought Rory would because he'd played before, but apparently not. No.
No, I think that's...
There you go.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'd really like to hear about a game that you guys played when I was there. I think you've all played it at different times, but we were at Andy's house the other day, and you all played Paper Dungeons.
Yes.
We did.
And
we did.
it sounded fun. I mean, we were doing something different, which was equally fun, but you were all laughing and arguing and debating and...
What were you playing at the time?
I think we were playing Twatty Hadouken.
Yes, I think we were.
No, I think you were playing Too Many Bones.
No, we weren't. Too Many
You're
Bones.
playing Too Many
Because
Bones.
then we
We were
swapped
playing Too Many
tables, didn't we?
Bones. Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
You're
There
playing
you
Too
go.
Many Bones. Yes. Well, I don't know who wants to describe Paper Dungeons. I've started talking, so I'll carry on, shall I?
Yes,
Go for
please
it.
do.
Paper Dungeons is a roll and write game in which you are doing traditional fantasy D&D inspired, but not D&D because that would be copyright infringement, dungeon crawling. So you have your party, your classic party of fighter, mage, cleric,
Rogue.
I almost said wizard then. I said mage and wizard. And you will explore into the dungeon and grab loot and kill monsters, and then there will be 3 boss monsters you have to kill as well.
Yes.
It is a typical roll and write. A bunch of dice get rolled, and everyone uses the same dice, so everyone has to work for the same system. Certain dice can be used for leveling up characters and grabbing aspects of loot, and then other dice can be used for moving through. And then when you encounter a trap or a monster, well, if you get into a trap, you'll lose some hit points. You have to mark them down. And then when you encounter baddies, you have to have a high enough score, which is usually related to the level of all your characters. Some of the baddies, especially some of the boss characters, will have certain requirements, like they'll take less damage from one character type or more damage from another character type. What's really quite interesting is it has this kind of cascade effect, which I know a lot of roll and writes do actually, which is, you'll unlock an artifact that'll click out, you'll scribble off one of your boxes on the artifact, well, that unlocks a potion, so you click a potion on, which means you can take more damage, or you might do something which gives you a level up after doing something. And really, that's about it. There are some options in there. Some of the dice are variable, so you don't have to use the dice for the same things every time. So, like for instance, you can use dice for different things on your sheet. But it is your typical roll and write, with the difference that you're actually moving through the dungeon. You have to plot your course as well through the dungeon, little path that you've gone through, fighting all the monsters, and it's slightly different each time because you draw a couple of cards that like add walls, and of course your boss monsters are different every time. I must admit, I didn't find anything about this game terribly original. It felt like a lot of roll and write games.
Oh,
However, this has to be the most fun I've had with a roll and write in a long time. I was absolutely enjoying every moment of that game, and it was even better playing it with 4 people because the amount of times you were getting frustrated because it's like you could see someone from the other side of the, especially there was a joint. That was the major point. There were treasure chests in the dungeon, and the first person to get that treasure chest had to say, "I've got treasure chest C," and everyone went, "Damn it! I'm one square away from treasure chest C," and everyone
which happened to me every turn, Steve.
Yeah.
There was this big ginger bloke across the table from me who did that every sodding turn.
He sounds like a right wanker.
He was utter prick. I was right. Next move, I've got everything I need now to jump over this wall and kill that monster and get the treasure and get the diamond. And then this ginger prick across from me was like, "I've got treasure C." Just as an example, just picked a letter at random there. Every bloody round.
And I got to admit, this added a major thing to it because it made you having to try and think about what you were doing compared to what everyone else was doing. You had to think, right, how do I get ahead? How do I make sure I'm grabbing this treasure before everyone else? How do I make sure that I'm going to be the other thing as well was a group thing was when you fought the baddies, whoever got the best result.
Yeah.
Killing the baddies also got extra points, so you all could attack him and you all got rewards based on 3 tiers, but whoever was actually the highest scorer defeating them also got another bonus.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like the collaborative aspects of this game, which I haven't seen before in a roll and write.
No, not to this kind of level. No,
it was
So
really,
hang
really
on.
simple.
I'm confused.
go on.
You it was collaborative, but you're still trying to dick each
wasn't
other up.
collaborative.
Oh, no, so
It was-
you've got I was saying all the monsters and all the treasure are there's a collaborative pool of them, so we're not working together. But once it is gone, once that monster is beaten by somebody, so you are directly you're directly competing with somebody in a roll and write, which is a bit unusual.
Yeah, most roll and
Right.
writes, you're looking at your boards
And
and
don't
you're
give
not
monkeys
looking at
about
what anyone
anybody
else is doing. Whereas this, there's several things which other players do affect you.
Right. Okay.
So you're having to pay attention. Like, you really want to try and beat everyone else at defeating a monster because the rewards are better. So it's not just a simple case of being right. Well, I need enough points to defeat the monster, which is what most other roll and writes would do. Here, you've got to try and up the ante and be better than everyone else as well.
Yeah, I just used completely the wrong word, Sid. Ignore what I said
No,
previously.
that's fine. I mean, it sounded like you were all having a good old what's the word? Debate about it,
Yeah,
especially between two ginger people at that table, from what I could hear from the other two.
yeah. But so I have really mixed feelings about this game. I didn't like it because I was so bad at it.
Is that the game's fault, Rory?
This is actually, it's interesting because we played this the day after we played First Rat, and for me, there's a similarity. There's a lot going on both of these. Just bear with me, Andy. Stop pulling faces, right? Right.
That's just his face, Rory.
Right. With Paper Dungeons, I was using my dice to do this and this, and I wasn't really paying attention to anybody else. And I was trying to level up my guys and trying to unlock these things to try and make me tough enough so I can go do the monsters. But it is also a race. You've got to get to this. If you don't fight the monsters, you lose points. But you've got to make sure that you're hard enough to go and fight those monsters. And the only way to really get kind of experience points and level up is to spend dice. But you're using the same dice to move as you are to upgrade people or to unlock items or to create any other type of enhancement like the health potions and stuff like that. And I found that I just couldn't get that synergy between if I did this, use this dice here to do this, that also unlocks this thing down here, and I can mark that off and I can do this. It's about using those dice economically and getting that synergy between the different areas of your little board as well as moving on the dungeon. And my brain could not do all of those calculations. I couldn't do it, which is the same problem I had with First Rat, in the fact that you move your light bulb thing along, and then you go to here, and then you move this rat, and then you move the two, so you double up. But because I've got the light bulb, I get a bonus, and then I also get to move my other rat down at the bottom to go and unlock a power. There were too many things for me to try and keep track of in my very simple ginger head to do it, and that was reflected in my incredibly low score compared to everybody else's. So I would like to play this game again, but with people that are less intelligent than me.
Play it with your kids.
You know what? That might be the only way I'm ever going to win this.
Oh, what kind of
In your face, Logan!
So hang on, I think I'm still missing. So you're playing a party of 4 people. Am I just being really thick
No, that's
here?
it. You play. You have all 4.
Right.
So everybody has the same 4
Right.
characters essentially,
Right.
and you
Makes a lot
have
more
to.
sense.
So we played the first monster was weak against the mage. Another one was weak against the cleric. Another one was weak against the rogue. So they essentially they do double damage, but you need to make sure that they're collective. They're all hard enough, but that particular class is as high as possible. So you do doubling up, so you can get the highest possible score.
Okay. Sounds kind of fun. How long does it take to play?
Half an hour.
Yeah, it's 30
Just a
minutes.
nice little quick win
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
rubbish at.
You've been awfully quiet about it, Andy.
I was just listening to
Well,
to
this
the
is gonna be
opinions.
interesting because Andy usually hates roll and writes. He hates the very thought of them. He hates the concept of them, and he's insulted by their very existence. So, what do you think of this, Andy?
Well, Mr. Tudor, you've basically hit the nail on the head there. Roll and writes to me have been historically a fucking nightmare. I hate them. They are awful, awful, awful things, and they shouldn't exist. You're quite right. However, I'm like you. I bloody loved it. I really enjoyed it. I don't know, for some reason the theme just really came through, possibly because it's just, you and I have played a lot of, fancy RPGs. We love dungeon crawler board games. I guess it just sparked something in my brain and I got the imagination going. Really enjoyed going through it. I need to level up here. I need to go, if I go through this little thing. But and I also kind of enjoyed it because I'm quite good at pathfinding stuff. and things like that. So I found, well, if I just go that way, I can do that, and I can get like 4 different crystals in one turn, rob them all, piss everybody off, beat the monster up in the corner, and steal his trousers. And, you know, and that I really enjoyed. I found it's almost like a puzzle in a way. So I quite enjoyed that aspect of it as well. And with the wonderful theme, which I felt personally came through, I could appreciate it probably doesn't for everybody, because it is, you know, literally paper thin.
Do we have a rim shot sound effect, Steve?
I can add one in, yeah. I can add one in.
And I did enjoy it. I really thought it was quite good fun because the leveling up, and I think part of the problem I have with a lot of roll and writes is that they're a little bit too simple. So I think all of the reasons why Rory hated it are the reasons I liked it, because it's slightly more complicated, because there's a bit more going on. Yeah. And I think that's probably why I liked it, because I played Ray Roller Inc. and a couple of others, and I found those just like, well, it's obvious, I just do that, and that. Done, right, next player. And then
that is a big difference, yeah. You've got more, to the roll and writes I've played previously, you've got a lot more dice. You're rolling 6 dice in this, and you're only picking 3. Whereas in other roll and writes I've played, it's a much smaller pool of dice, and either you use all of them or you only use a subset of them.
Yeah, I forgot about that as a difference.
You've got 6 dice, and if they come up skulls, everybody takes a hit. Loses some health, but you are choosing 3 of those 6, and therefore your choices, your agency, is very different between all the different players, between what they've done previously and what their current objective is, and their route through the dungeon.
And I think that helps, because, I mean, there was one example, I think it was Railroad Inc., actually, while on the subject, where I think it was Steve and Amanda, we were playing it, did exact same map for at least a few turns, and you're thinking, well...
It was like 3/4 of the game, I think. It was one of the first one we played,
Yeah, because there's an
of the game we had
choice
exactly
with
the
those
same.
dice, isn't there?
Yeah.
Whereas with this, I think for exactly that reason, Rory, that there's more dice, you're picking from a subset of quite a few dice, there's a lot more variation, there's a lot more permutations, so the chances of 2 players doing the same thing is
at the same
lower.
time, it's much lower.
Very low.
Which creates a lot of dynamism in that game.
There were no dinosaurs in my game.
No dinosaurs. I mean, I'm saying it's dynamic.
Yes, I know.
Probably using the wrong word again. Okay.
And what? So is this out? Can I go and get this?
Yeah, it's been out for about a year. I saw it last year at Expo.
And immediately ran away because it was a roll and write.
No, actually, I did say I need to come back at the end of it and pick it up from Cesar, but didn't for some reason. And then this year I made a point of getting it. So, and I'm quite glad I did, because I've actually really quite enjoy it. It's the only roll and write so far that I will tolerate and nay enjoy.
Well, there's a soundbite right there.
There you are, yeah.
Put that in the box.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's what's Paper Dungeons by Alley Cat Games. Good work.
Right then, folks, it's time to venture into our mailbag.
No, don't go in there. It's dangerous.
James McCann asks, Desert Island Games, what 3 games would you take with you if you were stuck on a desert island for a year?
Too many bones, because it's waterproof.
You can use it as a buoyancy aid.
No, you'd sink. No way that way. Jesus, you'd drown, mate.
It's MDF, mate. It'll float.
This is assuming that I'm going to be trapped on a desert island with at least 3 of the people that like board games.
I'm assuming so, yes. 3 to 4 other players, yeah.
Oh.
I don't know 3 games that I would take with me. I'll level with you now.
I mean, the easy option, the cop-out option is always an RPG, because, an RPG rulebook, some dice and some pencils,
Yeah.
You might actually finish a campaign then,
Stuck on a desert island.
8 hours a day. Yeah, just about.
Well, maybe that's it. Maybe I need to take Gloomhaven with me, because then I'll actually finish the damn thing, and I can use it as a raft once we've finished.
Just float away in the box. You'll be fine.
Okay,
that's a good shout.
I would take Root. I love Root, and I've got plenty of expansions that I keep buying and never playing.
I think I would take Nemesis. Possibly because it's awesome, and I've got a million expansions for it. So,
wouldn't that cause too much infighting, and before you know it, you're eating your fellow gamers?
It would certainly make dinner time easier.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Craig Haggart asks, I'm thinking of starting a local board game group. Any advice? What are the essentials and any pitfalls to avoid?
I think a key thing for a board game group is the location. I've been to board game groups that are at a pub, which are all right, providing the pub are quite happy for you to be there and just sit in a corner and play games. But then you do have I have this thing where I don't like my drinks being I don't like drinks on the table with my games. If it's your game, I'll have my drink there. But my games don't have drinks on the table, right? So you need a table with like a fireplace or a shelf behind you. But then I also find that when I'm playing in a pub, I always just end up putting the box lids and other games on an adjacent table. So I take up at least 2 tables when I play. Yeah. And then coffee shops, you kind of feel obligated to kind of buy stuff, buy food and buy drink. And if you're driving to these locations, you end up like having just like 3 or 4 pints of Coke, and you just feel gassy and bloated and need to pee every 5 minutes.
Yes, and then you get home and you've had nothing but sugar. I remember going to the one in Worcester and drinking lemonade all evening. Yeah. And then I got home and I'd had so much sugar it took me 3 hours to get to sleep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So far, gentlemen, you've offered
no advice.
2 things that don't help.
Yeah.
Well, I would say actually the first group game place we found was upstairs in one of the Wetherspoons in Worcester, which was really good because it had decent sized tables and was half dead. So most people on like a Tuesday night wouldn't bother going upstairs, so we were fine.
Yeah.
Occasionally we weren't allowed upstairs because there was a meeting. Even though we couldn't book the room, someone else could, which is really bloody annoying. So you have to play in the main Wetherspoons, and then you get random people coming up to you going, that looks a bit complicated for Monopoly.
Yeah.
So, we just carried on, but it was a bit annoying. I would say, location is, I'm sorry to repeat, stupid Channel 4 TV programs, but it's location, isn't it?
Does help.
You need a decent sized table. You need access to refreshments.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be beer or what have you, but you're going to need something because you want to be playing for at least 3 hours, really.
You need toilets then.
Toilets.
Yeah.
And parking, assuming that people are not going to just be able to walk there. Mine is currently held in a church hall, which is perfect because there's a coffee machine and there's water, there's toilets, there's parking. And it's really cheap and it's quiet, obviously, because we're the only people there, so there's no interruptions. So that's really good. I think the other thing that you really need to take care of is how you kind of almost market this and how you get people involved. A board game group will die a death if it's only the same 4 people turning up all the time, at which point you're going, well, what's the point of having a board game group? And then the inherent problem with that is things like Meetup. Now, there are probably alternatives to Meetup, but as I understand it, the overheads for using something like Meetup are quite high. So if you're taking subs, £1, £2 to come and join it, a lot of that is going to end up covering your overheads for just running that agency that hosts your advertising for you, so that people can find you, which is a bit of a shame, particularly if you want to go, right, I'm going to buy some staples. I want to buy Splendor. I want to buy Ticket to Ride for people that are brand new to the hobby, and just so that these games are always on offer. Another thing my group does, which is really good, we do it 3 times a month. 2 Mondays is social gaming, so anyone turns up, you bring any game, and then once a month we have a strategy night, which is where players book into a particular game. I say I'm going to bring Crescent Moon. I need 4 of the players max to play this. You have to go off and read the rules, watch a video, pick your factions. So when we turn up, you know what you're doing. And that makes playing those bigger, heavier games, you sit down and you're playing for 3 hours. There's no teach. And that works really, really well.
Yeah, that's like a really good idea.
It's interesting.
I mean, I'm quite fortunate because I'm a member of 2 board gaming groups. Although, to be fair, I haven't been to the one in Worcester for quite a while, which is shame on me. But it's the same one that Steve will have been to, because that's how I got introduced to it. And they play upstairs in a pub now, not the Witherspoons. They've moved to the Dragon. So I'll give you a free shout out there, boys. In Worcester. And that's literally, they've just got the entire room, tons of tables, tons of room. The bar's downstairs, so it's not then nobody comes upstairs to interrupt unless they go in the loo and they stick their head around the door going, "Oh, this looks fun." What you doing? But they're genuinely curious. They're not going. They don't do that looks too complicated stuff. And there's a very friendly pub, so they've done really, really well there. And then the other one I'm a member of, which I would go on a Thursday night, but we have RPGing to do, and Coriolis doesn't play itself. So that's held in the Bewley Brewery, which is particularly nice. So walk down there. They're really great. They're really friendly. They even reserve tables for us, which is fantastic. The only downside with it is it finishes at 9 o'clock, which is just a smidge too early, really, because it means that we have to start at like 6:30. Which for those of us, if you're away and you've got kids and you drive, you leave work at 5, you drive, you're not going to get home till 6.
Yeah,
You've
you
got
need
to have
to
your
have
dinner,
dinner and
you've got to feed the kids and all, and it's just a bit of a squeeze, which is a bit of a shame because it used to be slightly later, but for lots of reasons they shut a bit earlier. So I would say if you are going to do a group, make sure you can finish at a sensible time. I don't mean an early time. I mean, a time that will allow relative flexibility. Or one big one without any time pressure. Start at 7 or 7:30 and play on till 10:30, 11 o'clock when you get turfed out. That way, you don't have to stay all night, but if you want to, you can. Because many, many, many times, especially at the brewery, unfortunately, we brought down a game which we think will take an hour and a half. So we think, we've got tons of time, and it always takes longer and longer and longer. And then you get to 9 o'clock, and you think, Jesus Christ, you're trying to sort of stuff it all into a box before you get turfed out. So that's a bit of a downside.
If you are going to find a pub, it's make find a really friendly pub. I've heard stories of pubs or cafes that have said, well, if you're going to take up these tables, we're going to lose X amount of pounds if you're playing here. So you need to make sure that you cover this volume. Which is a real dick move, I think. Because I think even if you have a group of, say, 10 people coming and you're going to be there for 3 or 4 hours and everyone's going to have maybe 1 or 2 drinks or 2 or 3 drinks.
I remember one of the pubs we went to did get annoyed with that because there were 2 groups of gamers, basically what I would call the gamers that realised they were in a pub and would buy drinks and buy crisps and things like that. And then the other ones who were like, I'm not paying to game.
Yeah.
And brought in their own drink.
Oh, that's a low blow.
Yeah, and refused to buy anything at the bar. And the bar staff started to notice, because it wasn't that busy a pub, and did start to notice, well, hang on, they're coming here every week and I've not once seen them buy anything at the bar. So they started to get a bit, they were like, you've got 12 people up there, only 3 people are coming to the bar kind of thing. And buying drinks, so why are we letting you use this room every week?
That's fair enough.
So, in the end of the day, they're a business, and if you are taking up time with the tables, you've got to, which could be used for something else. I would say if you are looking for somewhere to play a game, early in the week is a good time slot to do it, because most pubs and things like that are generally quiet, so they don't mind the use of tables because it means there's people actually in there, and if you can get it going, there's a lot of people in there. But be warned that there are going to be some people who will refuse to pay and just turn up and play games. And
then we'll just want to drink water all night. And that's okay if it's a minority of people, as long as everyone else, I'm going to have a couple of pints, I'll have, a jar, a little tub of pistachios and stuff. I'm going to stick my 10 quid behind the bar. But not everyone's going to do that. And you've got to make it worth their while. And then the other problem with earlier in the week is when most pubs hold their things like pub quizzes. And try and dodge football nights as well. The last thing you want to do is try and have a board game while the football's on in the other room with the volume up loud. That's a stupid
game. Right, Mr. John Cage.
Who's he
asks,
Who's that guy?
I don't know.
Random.
If D&D is a 1 out of 10 score game, what fantasy systems would you rate above it?
All of them. No, that's not fair. 1 out of 10's a bit harsh. Jesus Christ. That gives you nowhere to go.
It's a bit high, isn't it, really?
Oh! Right, I'm off. I'm off. See you later.
That's Sid's colours on the mast right there.
Hey, I've never hidden my feelings about D&D, have I?
I'm sure you used to like it when we played it back in the day.
It's not about not liking it. I love it. I just don't think it's a very good system.
Well, you are wrong. Well,
Anyway, let's
Not
answer the
wrong.
question. Let's not go down
That's
this
a
rabbit hole again.
complicated. I don't know. I wouldn't say above it necessarily. More to the side. Because
Andy in diplomatic shocker.
I know. Well, I don't know, because I quite like D&D. It has its foibles. There's no two ways about it. 5th edition is.
Let's just leave it at that. Let's adjust his question to say if D&D is a 5 out of 10 score game, what would you put above it? What would you put below it? Now, I know it's not quite the question that John's asked, but I think that's what he's getting at.
Yeah.
And that will avoid this discussion that we're about to go into.
We need to
having a fight.
calibrate. That's the problem.
5 out of 10. Mid-ground. D&D is the
Middle ground.
benchmark. We all know it. Everyone knows it. Let's benchmark that line at 5 out of 10.
Hilariously, I haven't actually played that many fantasy systems other than, off the top of my head, Forbidden Lands,
Yep.
I think.
Yeah.
Because all of the other ones have either been cyberpunky or sci-fi or contemporary or anything like that. And I
Well, I actually think, I actually conversely say, I find it difficult to work out what systems I've played
yeah.
when a lot of them are quite derivative. We've played a lot of Year Zero system, which is Free League system. Of course, you've got D&D, and then there's a lot of other games which I've looked at are either D&D derivatives or D&D influenced. They're very, very similar. So I run it down. We've got the Call of Cthulhu system, which is that percentile, which I believe, and I can't remember, somebody's going to be shouting down their headphones at us now. There is a fancy game which uses exactly the same system.
Probably.
There is the D&D Year Zero, and I think the only other one we've played is Blades in the Dark.
Powered by the Apocalypse.
Powered by the Apocalypse.
Yeah, I played that one.
Okay, is that fantasy? I would say
The
steampunk, but okay.
Apocalypse system
It can be used
in
by
anything,
lots of
yeah.
things.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah. So the thing is, we hate on D&D because it's so ubiquitous. I think it's a 5 out of 10 because it's everywhere. It's got this gravitational pull, which is hard to escape, and you want to play something else. But you're right, Andy. I don't think we've played many other fantasy systems apart from Forbidden Lands, which is Year Zero. To really compare, what we've done is when we abandoned D&D and explored other things, we just didn't look at other fantasy systems.
No.
But does the fantasy part of it make a difference? At the end of the day, that's just a skin on top of a
No, I don't think that's
rule
true.
set.
I think I know what John. On the basis that I have a feeling why John's asking this question is because John wants to play a fantasy game. As in, no. That's the setting he's interested in.
So does
And
he
so that's
mean
why he's
system?
asking.
Does he mean system then? Or do
Yeah,
we
I think he does. Yeah, I think he does. He wants.
He's-
What is another fantasy RPG that's not D&D or D&D derivative?
Yeah, I think the big thing for that fantasy does that the other systems don't is magic, because magic in D&D is almost like a bolted-on rule set. I find it doesn't really have the same flow as the rest of the game. As much as I love D&D, but it's how do you do a decent magic system that fits that. Now I've got The Witcher behind me, which is very different, and I've not tried that yet. But again, that's a fantasy, very different.
It's supposed to be quite good.
I've just not had the chance to get that to the table.
See, Forbidden Lands, I think. I know he doesn't like it, so it doesn't help you, John. Sorry. But I think Forbidden Lands is an excellent fantasy, but it does magic very well, in my opinion. It makes you get punished for using magic if you do it wrong, and things like that. I love that. It does the swords and the shields and the smashing and the grabbing and everything else like that. It does it really well.
I enjoyed Forbidden Lands as well. It's a great
I've got
system
one.
once you get your head round it.
Go on then.
It's Dragons Conquer America, which uses the Faith card system,
Oh yeah.
which I know John has. I know John has, and having played Faith, which is a very different deterministic card-based RPG, I really liked it in Faith, and I'd love to see it in a fantasy setting. There you go,
Well-
John. Just get your copy of Dragons Conquer America out and play it.
I have
Well,
one
Go
more.
on.
Simbaroom. And I'm saying this having never played it, but just read it 3 times, and I'm itching to get it to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to, and I almost hate myself for even saying this. I was going to offer up Heart and the Spire
No,
series of games.
no, stop there.
So,
No,
So you're talking-
I
you're
didn't.
talking silly.
I didn't like it. Andy didn't like it. Let's put me and Andy to one side for a moment. Others, lots of others, do like it.
The question is, would we rate above it? Not anyone else, us.
No,
The
that's a
semantics
1
of
out
the
of 10,
question
isn't
here.
it? Is heart 1 out of 10?
No.
I was trying not to bring our prejudices into it.
Well, it's what would we rate above it? Well, I wouldn't.
What? Yeah, that is what would you rate
That's
it?
fair.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
fair.
yeah, that's
That's fair.
No
No,
semantics.
not at all.
It's
Not-
literally
no,
the question.
yeah.
Yeah.
No. As I say, I'd like to rate Simbaroom above it, but I don't know
haven't
how well
played
it
it,
plays. The system sounds interesting, and the universe it's set in sounds fantastic, but we are yet to play it.
I would also say, actually, several of us have got copies of the One Ring Second Edition, and we haven't got around to playing that yet either.
True.
I've forgotten that.
So we can't rate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, maybe she would have parked this question for another 6 months and got back to
Yeah.
John.
Let's
Yeah.
get back to it in a year.
Dear Download Podcast asks, what board games would you take to a festival?
Skull,
Skull
love letter,
and coup.
maybe.
Because after a few drinks, bluffing gets so much more entertaining.
Hang on. I think I need some more info. What kind of festival?
Well,
Well, it's called the Dear Download Podcast, so I think that gives it away.
guessing it's heavy metal. Guessing it's the Download Festival, but I don't know. I wouldn't take a board game to a metal festival. Jesus Christ!
But that's hence my confusion.
Is this to play in like after you've had a skinful and you're back in your tent?
There isn't the opportunity. Because, well, I mean, the music doesn't stop till 11, midnight, depending on what happens. Then you've got to sort of stagger back to your tent with a very sore neck. Then you pass out, and you've got to get up in the morning for more metal.
Maybe it's for the following morning, when those your support bands start at 11 that you've never heard of and don't care about. And you just thought, well, I can hear the music, even though it's like 3 miles away. I can still hear it perfectly because it's that bloody loud.
There's a morning at a festival.
I'm just going to say Skull. Take Skull.
It's a good
That'll
shout.
do.
It's a good game.
I must admit that the rest of the question says, I wanted to take the extra miscut set of cards from Seventh Continent. Unfortunately, my partner wouldn't allow it. And I quite agree with your partner. That's a ridiculous idea.
It's dumb.
Why
Don't do
why
that.
not take Gloomhaven if you're going to take Seventh Continent?
You could probably take Merkburg, because that's slightly metal, isn't it? It's an RPG, but it might work.
Slightly.
Slightly.
Slightly metal. Entirely based upon metal.
It's appropriate.
Yeah, you could LARP it with that if you really wanted at a metal festival.
You probably get a few takers as well.
You would, I reckon.
Old King's Crown asks, do you have a favourite game from back in the day? Maybe that you got into the hobby or played a part that still holds up today. A forever design. And he offers up Cosmic Encounter and Blood Bowl.
Oof.
I was actually having this conversation yesterday.
Oh?
Bizarrely, actually, old games that I still have that I think still hold up. And I was talking about how now Pandemic is the game that got me into this hobby. And as much as I probably wouldn't choose to play Pandemic of my own accord now, I still have it and I have no intention of getting rid of it, because when I'm introducing people to the hobby, particularly now, because Pandemic's quite old, there's lots of other options now. It's a game that I really enjoy teaching, and players' first experiences of that game, I kind of vicariously enjoy it through them, if that makes sense.
I'm the same with Mansions of
And
Madness.
it's similar with like Splendor. I've played that game. I've played both of these games countless times. I'm never going to get rid of them, because when someone is going to be, especially like at the board game club, to go back to that, new people into this hobby, I enjoy teaching the game. I know it very well. I'm pretty good at them, but I enjoy that. My enjoyment from the game comes more vicariously through your enjoyment of it than from my own. Those are my forever design. Those are my forever games. They're going to be on my shelf, and I will
Interesting.
probably never ever get rid of them.
See, to me, back in the day kind of means the 90s, when I was playing, for example, and I really still love it, and I'm really pissed off with myself. I got rid of it years ago. It was Space Hulk.
Yeah.
I don't know if it holds up, because I haven't played it since I was a teenager, because it kind of sat on the shelf when I was at uni, and then I kind of sold it once I decided I got fed up with carting it from house to house, and I'd sort of left uni, got a job, and I haven't really played it. But I really loved it. absolutely played it to death. And also Advanced Space Crusade, which I think was later dubbed Turreted Attack, which I really, really loved because it's more like a sort of campaign game that you managed from a little sort of console, and then you send your little troops that you assign to one little area of the game, and off they go and poke various randomly coloured organs in a ship to see what happened. And they're kind of two games that I really, really enjoyed back then. I also loved Epic, but most of the tabletop stuff from Games Workshop really back then.
Next time I come to yours, Andy, I'll bring Spacehawk with me then. The latest edition.
Oh, I've not played second edition, so or third, or whatever it is now.
Second or third, whatever, yeah.
Actually, I weirdly, from that, I know what you're thinking, sort of Andy, that kind of age. I don't think I've kept anything from then. Everything's kind of gone, annoyingly. We mentioned RPGs. I the one thing I haven't got rid of is my original Dungeons and Dragons. So my D&D basic rule cyclopedia and my D&D second edition rule books. So they're all still there. They're not going anywhere. I looked at them and kind of went, "Nah, I'm keeping them."
Definitely.
But yeah, I can't think. I think Rory's the same. I just think just the classics really. Ticket to Ride, Pandemic. I can't see me ever getting rid of them.
Catan can do one though.
Oh yeah, that can get
I would
bugger
never
off.
play Catan again. I don't care. I don't care how much you've heard about it and you've come to Get My Gaming Club. No.
I absolutely agree. I would like to get rid of it off our shelf, but it's not mine, so I can't. So but when we never play it, but it can foxtrot Oscar.
Well, I think on that happy news, we are at the end of our podcast. Well, I mean, let's close it with dissing Catan. I mean,
Well, that's the title card done there. Catan, go off.
Thank you very much for listening, everyone. We have been Polyhedra and Collider. If you enjoyed it, please give us a review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. I would actually say as well, I'm struggling a little bit with my spare time at the moment, so I'm struggling to post things on things like social media, BGG, and things about it. So if you do enjoy us, please share us as well, because that really does help get the word out. But you can find us all over the internet: Facebook, Twitter, Board Game Geek Guild 2726. Just look for Polyhedra and Collider and you can find us. Until next time, tatty bye and happy gaming.
Ta-ra.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.